Hey, I'm going to quickly just do a lesson recap in case you missed lesson one or you need a reminder. So we started off lesson one talking about the word explore. The reason we dive deep into this word is because the word explore is really important to our essential question. And remember, the essential question is that big question we're going to be able to answer by the end of this module. And that question is, why do people explore the sea? Over the next few lessons, we're going to be focused on how artists explore the sea. In lesson one, we started a poem called The Sea Wind, and we identified the central message of the sea wind. Remember, that central message is the sea can be terrible and it can be beautiful. Also, make sure if you missed any vocabulary words, you go back to the Nearpod lesson or come back to this video and copy all of your vocabulary words down. Remember, as we were reading, we were annotating our story. You need to also make sure you have these annotation codes down. You can also find these annotation codes in your knowledge journal. Remember, come back to this video, pause right here, and get these vocabulary words down if you missed any. Another really important thing we did in lesson one is we numbered the lines in the poem. This is important because when I'm talking about this poem, I can't say, well, let's go back and look at page one because there was only one page. I need to tell you, go to stanza 1, line 6, and you know exactly where to go. As we were reading, we recorded what we noticed and wondered. In your response journal on page 2 and page 3, you had places in your binder to record these notices and wonderings. Remember, make sure you come and get these vocabulary words down. One of the things I said is that great readers underline important words and phrases that are repeated. One thing we did together in class is we reread the poem and we underlined those repeated words and phrases. Remember, face to face, that was a word that was said twice. We also read this word wind a few times. And you can't really see it right here, but if you go back and you look at your copy of The Sea Wind, remember, let me go up here. Line 5 and 6 and 11 and 12 were also very similar. And this is where we found our central message. The far off beautiful sound of the sea and the far off terrible call of the sea. The first stanza of this poem describes the sea as being a beautiful place, and the second stanza of this poem describes it being a terrible place. After we looked at all the repeated words, then we put brackets around anything in the poem that could not really happen. And that's figurative language. Language expressing one thing in terms normally not used. So it's something that literally couldn't happen. The wind can't literally wear shoes. After that, we talked about how Sara Teasdale, that's the author of the poem, explored the sea in the poem. And remember, the two things she did is she used figurative language and she used repeated words and phrases. Next, I had you draw a picture and label it that expresses the central message of the poem. Remember, you should have drawn something that made the sea look terrible, but it also looked beautiful. If I go back to this poem, I notice that in the first stanza, when it's beautiful, I know the stars and the stately moon. That makes me think it's nighttime. Also, when the sea is terrible, but the wind comes whispering in between in the dead of night when the sky is deep. So I should have also made sure that my poem and my drawing was the sea at nighttime. Right. And the final part I want to go back on is the land. For your land, you should have wrote a paragraph for what is the central message of the sea wind and how do you know. So you should have mentioned either the figurative language that you read or the repeated words and phrases. And remember, figurative language is something that can't really happen.